I think the most disturbing takeaway from what happened the other day wasn't, obviously what Debbie did was, the worst kind of showmanship, and it was all intentional. But the fact that there was such bickering, particularly by Representative Goldman, who's a special kind of, bad public servant, because he isn't a public servant. He is the heir to the Levi Strauss fortune. He bought that congressional seat, and because progressives don't know how to get their damn act together, didn't get behind Yulee New as they should have, and she would be in Congress right now, and she would not be playing that stupid game. Yet he's in there wanting you to admit that there's Russian collusion still after everything. But on top of everything else, the fact that we are still living through this Julian Assange nightmare, and they're literally they are trying to get you under oath to say, who's your source? Who is your source? No, we're not asking him who his source is. No, who's your source? It's just and this is one of the reasons why sometimes you have to break bread with, different individuals on the spectrum of politics, like libertarians, who understand that our civil liberties are literally going out the door right now. Like, we do not have much of anything. You couldn't even 5 years ago, you couldn't imagine sitting in front of a House Select Committee and them suggesting, give up your source. But today they think, oh yeah, no, there's no protection. There's no freedom of protection of information anymore. Now you need to give it up. And if you don't, then we're really going to back you into a corner. To me, that was the most disturbing takeaway from the hearing. Do you feel that that was the same as far as you saw it?
Yeah, I think that was very disturbing, and it was representative of, I think, a change, just the basic change in the way Democrats have come to think about civil liberties in the last 5 to 10 years. Look, again, it's not a big Sherlock Holmes mystery how this story came out, but I made a deal on an attribution. The attribution was sources at Twitter. It's actually accurate. There's more than one person, and pressuring me on television to break that deal is really totally inappropriate, because what it would do is we would send a message that the press is totally untrustworthy, that under questioning by government officials, they should give up their sources, or they should break their agreements, even for something that doesn't involve a life or death situation with some source who's in great danger. You just can't break that deal. And 5 or 10 years ago, can you imagine Dennis Kucinich asking that question? I mean, like, no. It would never happen. Like, you just wouldn't go there, because it's understood that reporters can't answer those questions. So for the way that they were hostile about that, was an expression of, I think, a lack of familiarity and interest in those issues, which, by the way, comes out also in the Twitter files. There's an amazing exchange in the first one where Ro Khanna is telling Vijaya Gadde that, look, there's all this jurisprudence. There's New York Times versus Sullivan, the newspapers have rights. Like, you have to understand that you're getting into some scary territory if you block the story. And she had no idea what he was talking about. It wasn't that she disagreed. It was that it had never entered her mind before. And I think we're getting to the same place with lawmakers too.
Yeah, I think it's horrifying. And I feel like they're just all very unfamiliar with this. And I try to explain this to some people about how this works, but it's very disheartening when you're seeing people that just completely don't understand the First Amendment and how this works. That's just not how this works. So it's distressing. It shouldn't surprise us. Look, we have somebody on the Supreme Court that couldn't name their 5 granted freedoms in the First Amendment, and she somehow got through. So, I think that they're just not taking this seriously enough. And yet I'm way left of them, and they're acting somehow like old school. They've crossed way over. These are not, I don't even know what these people are.
I mean, don't they remind you a lot of sort of the Tom DeLay conservatives of the mid 2000s, this sort of casual disdain for that's so 2000, that's so pre 9/11 of you to care about due process or whatever it is. I I think you see a little bit of that in this new breed of Democrat that has gotten very, very sort of dismissive of the Bill of Rights ever since the Russia thing happened, or it didn't happen. You know, I mean, like, depending on your point of view.
Yeah, no, it's consistently being trampled on. That's why I keep it here. I feel like, you know, I just need to make sure that nobody's literally taking mine, because we're losing these things like all over the place. And it's just, it's sad. They just don't understand what they're doing. They're really putting like final nails in the coffin of freedom of press. And it's really a very unfortunate thing that's happening. And the hypocrisy of these people is just suffocating.
And that's really the point about them asking you to reveal your source. It's not about, you know, can they ask you? Of course they can, but it's being done in a threatening manner, and everyone knows that. It's basically trying to silence people from ever coming forward. Julian Assange may very well die in prison because he refused to give up whoever the source was that released the WikiLeaks emails from John Podesta and Hillary Clinton. And to this day, they're still saying, hey, all you got to do is tell us who did it, blah, 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 you know, you'll be free. And all I'm thinking is, yeah, that's the end of our civil liberties if you give it up. So, you know, I hate that somebody, you know, in this case, Julian, and we'll be in DC for the press freedom event, which will be on May the 2nd and May the 3rd.
It's May 3rd.
May 3rd. It is very important that we do not forget how vital our civil liberties are. And whether you agree with your politics, which quite frankly, if people know anything about your history, you're pretty left. But
they're calling him not, because how dare you do, it's like everything is teams. Everything is, if you're this, then you can't be that. And people are like somehow thinking you're a right-wing person. And I'm like, well, first of all, that's just silly. I'm
a Bernie person, frankly.
I know. It's silly to think that, but they have to be able to label you as an enemy.
Yeah, and if we're in this, and if we're looking at this as, you know, into the future right now as objectively as possible, when you have the possibility of having a real authoritarian president who knows what the hell he's doing, and our governor DeSantis, when you act like this, people are going to look at it as, oh, I guess there really isn't any difference, so I guess we'll just elect DeSantis because both sides are doing the same damn thing. When they conduct themselves the way that they do, you know, people tend to forget that half this country identifies as independent politically, and they're just going to go wherever seemingly the wind is going to blow at that particular time. And we've been living through DeSantis, and we try to constantly tell people, you're really underestimating this guy. You don't understand how he's going to appeal to a large swath of this country. And he is very authoritarian.
Yeah. Well, this whole thing is authoritarian. This whole thing is so authoritarian. Like watching her sit there, like any of that, it's just, you know, it's almost like McCarthyist. Like it feels like very scary. And it's like out of some sort of like novel that like it's Orwellian.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the people who run this country came to the conclusion that civil liberties are the reason that Donald Trump came to power. So we got to clamp down on those. And I just want to agree with everything you're saying about the Julian Assange case, that I feel like reporters have so totally missed the boat on how crucial a story that is for their future, because if you actually read that indictment, it basically criminalizes any kind of activity that involves covering the national security beat, like transmitting or conspiring to obtain national defense information. You do that every single day if you cover the Pentagon or if you cover, you know, the NSA or whatever it is. And you're guilty as soon as they charge you, basically. And the failure of people to recognize that it's not about Julian Assange's personality or what they feel about 2016. It's about the law and about what it means going forward. It's just shocking. Again, I don't think you would have seen this 15 years ago. I think you would have seen people rallying to the cause a little bit, you know, and you don't see it at all now.
I'm hoping there's a decent turnout in May. I mean, this is, since I've been following this for a very long time, I think the first opportunity in terms of any sort of political thing. I mean, we're definitely at a better position with somebody like Merrick Garland than we were, let's say, back with Trump's, administration, in terms of getting them to be reasonable and drop this, as Obama didn't want to pursue it. So it's like, I think they know they need to somehow save face. And I think that this is an opportunity that if enough people really show up, that it's really a bad look.
Yeah, and especially in the rest of the world too.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they don't care. I don't know, but I'm assuming if they go through with this, and let's say he ends up in Florence, Colorado, and he dies in prison. Can you imagine the optics of that? I mean, it's essentially a political prisoner dying in an American prison. I can't believe that they're gonna go there, but seem like they intend to.
Yeah, I think they've just been putting it off longer and longer and longer, figuring he would just die. Like they just probably figure they could just drag this out and keep it going, and then he'll die, and then they won't have to ever really do anything about it. Like, that's almost what it feels like to me. And Off Rail was asking what's in May. So guys, on May 3rd, it's International Press Freedom Day. And I am not by any means claiming to be the press, but there happens to be a march, a protest in front of the Justice Department in DC on May 3rd. And I know it's being organized by like the Assange defense people. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.